Welcome to the Couple to Couple League PeakDay podcast, where we discuss natural family planning and fertility with our friends. Today's guests are Cora and Logan Potvin. Cora and Logan met on Catholic Match in 2021. With a 10-hour drive between them and only 4 in-person visits, Logan proposed in 2022, and they were married a year later. They lived briefly in Michigan before settling in Ohio before the birth of their first daughter, Elise. They consider themselves blessed to have NFP work so well for them. Cora is a digital and traditional artist and has worked on animated children's TV shows and children's books. Logan works in marketing and loves photographing weddings and Catholic couples on the side. They love the traditional Latin Mass, church architecture, and the sound of music, which prompted them to honeymoon in Austria. Cora is an identical twin and comes from a family of cradle Catholics who shared a series of powerful reversion experiences. And Logan was baptized in 2021 and is one of 3 siblings to convert in the last 5 years. So, Cora and Logan, thank you for joining me on the PeakDay podcast.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
And we do have little baby Elise there next to you, so we'll just make this work, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
She'll add some funny noises to the background. It'll be great.
Yep, that's fine. We are family friendly. So, of all the online dating matching choices, how and why did you choose Catholic Match?
So my twin sister and I were like best friends, so we do a lot of things together. And we were listening to a podcast from Trent Horn, the Catholic apologist, and he had his wife on, and someone asked a question that was about our age, about career stuff. And she was like, I'm going to be honest with you. You need to start thinking about marriage or dating at least. And I'd never really considered that. And she said something that really stuck with me. She said, as a woman, the dating pool is bigger when you're younger and gets smaller when you get older. But for men, it's smaller when they're younger and gets bigger when they get older. I was like, oh, okay. So my sister and I took some pictures and signed up that weekend. And we're not happy about it at first. Definitely wanted to delete it, but we'd already paid for the 3-month subscription. So kept at it. And then, she met her husband within like the first 3 days on Catholic Match. And
oh my goodness.
And I met Logan after a couple months. So worked well.
I joined actually when I was in RCIA still, because I knew at that point I was like, I'm all in for the faith, and so I know I'm going to need a good Catholic woman. If that's what God's calling me to marriage for, then I need a good woman. And so I was on it for quite a while, and being in Vermont at the time, the pool was very small. So after quite a while, I kind of was like, all right, if I'm just going to take all the filters off and see what's out there. And then Cora, we stumbled upon Cora, and then the rest is history, as you said. But also, fun fact, my sister just got married, was baptized and married in the same year. And she also used Catholic Match. And instead of taking it like a bunch of months for me, it took her like a week to find her husband. So.
Oh, gee whiz. That is amazing.
Yeah. And I think Catholic Match does a good job at asking enough questions to at least get good conversations about the faith started. And it makes it easier to kind of like identify, okay, how into your faith are you? They ask about liturgical preferences. They ask about, how often you go to church,
what different the church teachings that you believe in.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That was going to be my next question is like, what kind of questions do they ask you? And did you feel like it was, comprehensive or in depth enough to really find somebody that seemed like a good match?
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think it's how much you want to put into it. Right. So if you just answer the questions, it's a lot of yes, no, because I mean, it's hard. A lot of the faith is kind of a binary. It's either you agree with the teaching or you don't. But it's like if you put in your bio like how you actually feel about the faith, what inspires you, a little bit about yourself, then I think you're going to have more success. And I think Catholic
Oh,
Match, because I tried other platforms. In my opinion,
okay.
Catholic Match was best suited for what I was trying to accomplish.
So in your engagement process, and then maybe Logan, even in your RCIA courses, did natural family planning come up in your conversations?
Yeah, especially during RCIA, I had a great uh, Deacon Paul from Milton, Vermont. He was who ran RCIA there, and um, he brought it up as like, what here's what the church teaching is, and here's why it's a beautiful teaching.
Mm,
And at that point, I had kind of, I mean, before becoming Catholic, I was living like St. Augustine's my patron saint. That's kind of the lifestyle I was living, like a lot of sexual sin. So to see what is the actual fulfillment of our bodies,
mm,
and beyond RCIA, discovering the theology of the Body Institute, which, like Christopher West, it's a book that we both read during our
uh-huh.
engagement. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, it was definitely talked about and was kind of reiterated as we talked and dated, and then as we were engaged, and it
Mm.
still comes up pretty regularly in marriage. So
So was natural family planning part of your engagement process? Was it like a required class that you had to take, or was it something that you just wanted to do?
So we got married in Ontario. So in the diocese I'm from, it's not required to
Hmm.
do any NFP training.
Okay.
But because um, Logan had heard through like his brother, they had to take like an NFP course during their
Okay.
marriage prep. It was something that we wanted to do as well, just to get educated on it. So yeah, we did the one that they took. So
Okay. And you had a teacher that was in Kentucky.
yeah, we now live like less than an hour from them.
Right.
So it's funny. Yeah.
Okay, so Logan, coming from a non-religious family and then converting, and your fiance is attending the traditional Latin Mass. That's a big, big journey,
Yes.
and in just a short time. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so part of my conversion was, this is kind of true with a lot of folks. It's with apologetics, right? You can't just cram stuff down and expect people to understand it or want to follow it. So my brother converted and was baptized in 2019. And with the whole family at that point not being religious, and
Mm,
kind of talking about shifting politics from liberalism to conservatism, which tends to be
mm,
kind of common for younger folks that convert, as they also have a political conversion.
okay.
But it was just interesting to see him convert, because he was more of a St. Paul, like, like atheist, wasn't a fan of the church in any way. So to see him convert through the grace of
Mm-hmm.
God and the influence of his now wife, was at least made me question stuff. And so I started going to church with them. And then for the next like year and a half, at that point, I was kind of keeping Catholicism at an arm's distance, being like, okay, well, it's great and the teachings make sense, but I don't actually want to do it because I want to keep living my life of sin because it's comfortable. And,
Mm,
everything, my first 22 years, 23 years of my life was, how you get rewarded, how you get status, how you get all of the good things is not from church. It's from what you want and what you feel.
sure.
And after a lot of that, I think I just realized there's not fulfillment in that. Um,
Mm,
and once it came to a head, when I was like, okay, it's not just true and I can keep it at an arm's distance. It's, if it's true, I need to do it for the sake of my soul. Um, so when I joined RCAA, I was in a relationship at the time, and she basically gave an ultimatum of faith or me. And I was like, well, faith, bye. And so then it was just 100% all in at that point. I mean, that was a simplification of it, but yeah, that's
yeah.
basically what happened. And
Yeah.
it with Catholicism, the beauty of the faith is that there are so many mysteries that you
Mm,
can contemplate, that like however deep you want to go. I mean, there are
mhm,
plenty of people that have more simple faiths that are doing the Lord's work and are getting great fulfillment. I'm
mm,
much more like analytical, so I want to learn, 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 learn. And
sure.
Catholicism offered me that. So that's
Yeah.
also kind of beyond RCIA. How I discovered the Latin Mass was just kind of
Okay.
researching that and seeing the history. that it provides, the connection to the saints that I learned about during RCIA, to know that they were celebrating or witnessing the same Mass was very powerful for me as well. So that's kind of how it happens. And there's still times I tear up during the Latin Mass, just knowing that there's that history there, and the beauty that the Old St. Mary's in Cincinnati, the servers, the choir, the priests, and I've been blessed as well to have a bunch of good Novus Ordo parishes where that reverence, the love for the Lord, both from the priests and the parishioners, is present. So I've definitely been blessed in that way, and will continue to keep learning the faith. So that's kind of my journey.
So what was your experience taking the CCL NFP course? Can you tell me a little bit about your thoughts, like before taking it and during it, and then after? Was there a little bit of a mind shift during that time?
I would say that before taking the course, I had heard through other podcasts, like kind of a brief introduction on what NFP was, or the symptothermal method. So I had a little bit of knowledge going into it. But definitely during and after, like, I felt like I could actually put it into practice instead of just like, okay, I've heard these things, but I don't actually know how to do it. And I feel like the course really simplified it in a way that I could understand. And like the PeakDay app was really helpful to just like make it easy to do every day.
Right.
Yeah. And I think from like the guy's perspective here is, I mean, I understood the beauty of the church's teaching, like, and why NFP is great. But then, again, getting to my analytical side, like actually doing the course with Brian and Sharon, who were awesome teachers, very energetic and passionate about it, which helps a lot, because it can be, especially from a guy, like you're learning a lot about the anatomy of a woman that you didn't learn. I mean, I went to public school, but we didn't learn it there. But so to see God's design mesh up with church teaching so perfectly is like, it helps you grow appreciation for my now wife, or your fiance, if you're taking it during your engagement. Like everything makes so much more sense, that like when everything about Cora anatomically like points to God when you look at it through this frame. So that's kind of what the course gave me as well, which was awesome. And I mean, it's definitely a lot of information, but I think it's worth it.
What was the impact of having that couple to couple experience during your NFP class?
So it humanizes it. So I think without their humanity behind it, I think it would have been very dry. It would have left me more confused. You can tell with like what they're passionate about, and that kind of brings life to what is in the textbook, which we got a copy of as well.
And it also just helps, like, speaking to and learning from a couple that has been using NFP for many years, and like knowing that they've put it into practice, or even their like journey to appreciating NFP and stuff helps me appreciate it more as well.
So Logan, what is your role in like the daily charting and tracking of your shared fertility? You mentioned the PeakDay app. Do you both have it on your phones?
Yeah, so we share a phone, which makes it even easier. So like during the first part of our marriage there, we would kind of have the phone near us. That we wake up roughly the same time, make sure that she has the thermometer, make sure the thermometer is washed. That was kind of my job as well. So then, inputting, and then kind of just a lot of it was a shared responsibility of like talking about, okay, here's what we're seeing. Here's kind of what last month's was. Because I mean, it was so new to Cora as well, just tracking in general. So she was tracking her cycle for 8 or 9 months or a year prior to getting married. But then adding in all of these different variables, mucus levels, temperatures, all that is, it's a lot. So I think being open to talking through it, not just inputting it, I think that was kind of a shared role.
So, Cora, how do you feel about having, a really engaged partner when it comes to talking about your fertility?
Well, I definitely really appreciated it because it, like, when he knows what my cycle's doing or where I am in my cycle, like, we're able to clearly communicate like expectations, or hopes. So I found that it was a blessing just to have him also,
Sure.
being an active participant and not just being like, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
This is your thing.
I feel like you kind of have to be, that's part of being a husband. If you're doing what the church teaches, I think there's not a lot of leeway for you to be passive in it. I mean, that's the whole nature of sex, is it's an entire coming together of two entire persons, like soul and body. So I think that kind of that mentality spills over to how we approach NFP as well.
All right. So tell us the story about your Sound of Music honeymoon.
The first visit that Logan came, that was in like January 2022. The first movie we watched together was The Sound of Music, and he really liked it. It was the first time he got to watch that movie, and I had grown up watching it every year.
Right.
And it was my grandpa's favorite movie on my dad's side, and he passed away when I was 1, so I never got to know him. So it's always been like a special movie for my family. Yeah.
We went to Ireland for the first portion of our honeymoon, and then that's one thing the Europeans do really, really well. One of the things Europeans do really well is they make accessibility by travel much easier. So like we went over to Austria because we're like, hey, when are we going to just go from, fly out of wherever American airport all the way to Austria? Like that's going to be
expensive,
a haul and expensive. So let's just hop over while we're in Ireland. And so instead of doing one of the tours of the Sound of Music stuff, we just kind of did our research of like, okay, here are the places, here's where they are. And we kind of drove there with our little rental car and went places that we shouldn't have gone because I can't read German, and had someone who wag their finger at us for going down the road that we shouldn't have gone down. But I would do it again in a heartbeat.
So your daughter Elise was born, like within the first year after you were married. So, did you feel like you had enough time and practice to be able to, really kind of plan this birth?
Yeah. So I think that was another giving up control moment for us. Was actually I was looking for a new job, and we were like, okay, I think we need to trust. And it worked out in a way that the day that I got job offers was the day that we found out Cora was, or the day after I got job offers is the day we found out that Cora was pregnant. But we were definitely in a good routine in terms of practicing NFP and charting and all that. So that way we knew what was going on. And through a lot of prayer, I think we felt prepared for what we were doing.
Yeah. And I would say within like the first few months of our marriage, we definitely were using it more to avoid getting pregnant, just because we were living apart. Like I was still in Ontario and Logan was in Michigan. So we were like meeting each other like weekly. So that was like hard. Not an ideal time. But and then Logan not having the job, and then that felt like not a great time either. And then just surrendering it over to God, and everything's worked out well.
Yep.
So
right.
Yeah.
What do you want to share with other young couples?
One of the most important thing that we can do as men is honor our wives or honor the woman in your life, or regardless of if you're married to them or not. And I think one of the best ways you can do that is to understand women better. I think I came from a world where whether it's through pornography, social media, or whatever, we live in a world that women's bodies are abused, and then men abuse their bodies as a result of that. And I think we need to get back to a culture of respecting women, honoring women. And I think men will find their manhood in doing that and doing what's necessary. whether it's through NFP, a good prayer routine, spiritual direction, or all of the above, you'll find your manhood there and find your purpose fulfilled through Christ.
As a woman, it's definitely helpful to just learn more about your fertility and how that works, because growing up, really all you get is you get a period. Okay, what else? Like, it's just so confusing. And I feel like in our culture today, or just going to the doctor, like if you have any issue, it's just take birth control, take the pill. And like I just never wanted to do that. And I didn't know about NFP till college. I didn't even know Catholics did that. But I think that it's worth learning, like even if you're not dating anyone, like just as a woman, to get to know your fertility better, I think is really important and helpful. And then you can learn, like, okay, do I have a cycle that's working normally, or do I need to go see someone to figure out what's going on? So then by the time you get married, like you will have that figured out, or while you're married, it does help you to learn, like, okay, stuff is going right. Like we could conceive right now, or do I need like some hormone help? So,
Right. So thank you, Cora and Logan, for being on the PeakDay podcast.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.